Good morning. Marmalade here with episode 3 of what I've learned on the PCT. Today is, what is it? October 19th, and it's 11:55, so that's how I can still say good morning. And it's 93 degrees. The loveliness of living in Southern California, but it's warm, but I'm here for you. And this is our third round of questions, and I failed to ask the last in episode 2, but please bring some more questions on about the PCT that you'd like to know. And let's get on with it. All right, question 1. We have 4 questions today. The first one is from Shanks Mare. What has been your biggest mistakes with your loadouts? As in, why did I think I could get by with this jacket when I should have taken my warmer one? Just things like that. All right, Shanks, thanks for that question. I have a couple answers to this. One of the things I did that was, I've probably been backpacking pretty hardcore, steadily, and in the desert for about 2 years before I took off on the PCT. And I've had tons of loadouts, of course, and tons of trips. I'm talking about how I loadouts in my pack. Loadout is when your pack is full of everything. One of the things I made a rookie mistake was when I took off at the last minute, I threw in literally about 10 things. I threw in a compressible cup that I never used once in my life, but I bought a headband, keep my head warm, my ears warm if I needed that, a notebook to keep track of things. I'm trying to think of, there was all kinds of odds and ends like that. I think I had like 10 things I threw in at the last minute, equaled about 2.5, 3 pounds. And I learned quickly that I didn't need any of them. And you know, I had done almost 2,000 miles before this, but all in little 2 and 3 day trips. So I'd never done anything long. So I didn't mind bringing extra stuff on a 2 or 3 day trip. But once I got on the PCT, I realized by Warner Springs, which is at mile 109.5, I didn't need those 10 things and some other things. So thankfully I had a friend that was meeting me there, brought me some pizza for Trail Magic, and he took all those things from me. I said, please take them. I don't know why I threw them on my pack. So that was the first mistake I made. A couple others were, and really, it's not that I didn't know better, I just had the gear, so I brought them on my thru hike, but I wish I would have invested in something lighter. 2 things were my rain jacket. I had a normal rain jacket like we'd wear every day around town, but it was very heavy, about 1.5 pounds. And not only heaviness, but I run warm. So in Southern California, when it rained, my issue was while backpacking, I generate a lot of heat. The rain jacket worked from the rain standpoint, but I would just cook inside of it and I would sweat out from the inside. So if I didn't get soaked from the rain, I was sweating on the inside and super uncomfortable. I had pit zips, I'd open those, zip my jacket down, I have a hood on when it was raining, but I was so hot and so uncomfortable that I wish I would have got a thinner, lighter jacket, not only for the weight that's in my pack, because I only wore my rain jacket about 4 times in the first 702 miles of the desert. So I regret having that jacket. It's what I had. It was a nice one, but it just wasn't for backpacking. And so when you weigh how much something weighs versus how much you touch it or use it, it definitely wasn't worth it. But at the time I was trying to save money so that I had enough money for my 2 hikes. So I had the jacket and I brought it. The other thing was my down puffy. I don't know the exact model, but I wear it car camping now. But I brought it in the first desert, and when I flipped up to Washington, I had it until I got hurt. So I did 900 miles with it, and it was on the heavier side. It was just a REI down, really toasty, warm jacket. But once again, I only needed it in the desert like 2 or 3 times. It got cold enough. And I was in Washington. It got cold a couple times, but I bet you I wore it 5 times in 900 miles. But I carried that thing, and that one was heavy, but it was like a lot of jackets. It folded into its left pocket. Many jackets. Pocket is the bag. Basically, you just turn in the whole jacket inside out. It becomes the bag. And the problem was when it was heavy, but it was like the size of a literal football. So it took a lot of real estate up in my backpack, and it was kind of heavyish, but for something that I didn't use very much. I've now since gone to an Enlightened Equipment Torrid Apex jacket. It's less than half the weight. It's way more compressible. And wow, we have some reach stuff. You see all the stuff line, and more compressible and way lighter. And because I like that, it's compressible in my pack, and because I don't touch it every day, I'm not lugging around like a 2-pound jacket. So I hope that's a good answer for your question, Shanks. All right, so question number 2 is from R. Richardson. How was it dealing with insects like ticks, mosquitoes, and biting flies, also snakes and scorpions? So I'll start with the first part of that. I did want to mention something that I haven't really mentioned much in my videos, but I think most hikers will be surprised how many ticks there are in the desert. Obviously they're in the forest and when you go through lowland bushes in the mountains and things like that. But my playground for the last, since 2015, has been in the desert on the PCT. I've gotten 6 ticks that have actually dug into me. I've had to dig out and took a long time to heal. And the problem with ticks is you don't feel them, or unless you're looking, you search for them, you don't feel them until they're dug in you, and then it starts to hurt. So I've had 6 that have been dug in me, but probably 100 that I found. And I'm going to give you a huge pro tip, because the desert, like I said, is where I hike on the PCT. Is because one of the things that people don't think about when they're not from here and they're on the PCT, whether you're doing a day section or a through hike, is that when you're in, especially it's mostly exposed for most of it. What happens is, let's say you need a break from the sun, which is super common, and there's not much shade anywhere, there's not many trees, but the trail is lined with bushes that are 3 to 5 or 6 feet high. And so one of the natural things to do is, if the sun's coming this way, get underneath, get on the trail, but get under the bushes on one side where the shade is, and get out of the shade. But when I'm hiking on the trail, I tell people in the desert, when I walk by them, every single time I say something, is if you are scooched up against the plant material, the ticks will crawl on you and dig in. So when you are on the trail and seeking some shade, try your best not to ever touch the bushes with your back or any body part. Just stay away from, even if it's 3 inches, just don't touch them, because that's how I got all of mine. And they're on the bushes waiting. And so I do that San Diego 100 Peaks list that I'm gonna actually haven't done for a little bit, but I'm working on that. Many times we have to bushwhack to the very little, maybe the last 100 yards to the peak, and we are generally covered in them. So make sure you don't. So my tip basically on the ticks is don't push up against them, but make sure you're constantly checking. I wear shorts, so I'm always checking. They tend to want to run up and crawl up your legs to groinal or moisture areas like your pits and neck and things like that. So be checking all the time. Mosquitoes obviously are seasonal. So obviously it's all dependent on how much snow and rain there was every year. So like in the Sierras where the mosquitoes are bad, this year it wasn't a lot of snow, but it was a late snow. So that meant the mosquitoes were kind of around late. But once that snow is mostly melted, then they die off. So the only thing I found that works for me, and some people are against this, but I use 100% DEET. I've used 30%, things like that are less toxic, but it does not work for me. Unfortunately, I've said it many times in my videos, that the insects love me. They literally attack me. So I just, for my sanity and health and not being just, covered and ridden with bites, I use 100% DEET and it works. Usually if I do a 12-hour day, I have to apply it twice, like somewhere in the middle of the day I have to put it on because I kind of sweat it out. With biting flies, we have horse flies, those bigger flies here and there in the desert. I've been bit by them, but they're pretty rare. So what's great about Southern California, we're pretty much bug-free and mosquito-free except for ticks. But I will say I've had black flies when I did the long trail in Vermont, ate me alive. And so what I used was 100% DEET, and it worked pretty well. But I ended up buying this little bottle of, it looked like olive oil, but it was a local product in Vermont in a gear store. And it was called, I forget what it was called, Black Mountain something. But it was basically a natural mixture of stuff. So I would basically put my 100% DEET on, and then I would dab it almost like cologne, put some in the key points, and just spread this little bit of real thin oil on me a little bit, and that seemed to work. So they make different kinds of more toxic and natural stuff. So they make oils and stuff for biting flies. I just happen to live out west where there's not many, so that's an answer to your question. I was trying to remember the last part. It was snakes and scorpions. So the desert, that's, obviously there's snakes everywhere, but yeah, I've come across many, I don't know, 100 or more rattlesnakes. Also, like on my thru hike, it's funny because I've seen a lot of rattlesnakes in my life on the desert, but when I did my 700 miles of the desert portion, I only saw 1 rattlesnake, but I was counting, I had 10 other snakes. They're all just like regular garden snakes and things like that, king snakes, but nothing poisonous, but I saw 1 rattlesnake. So it's just, I think one of the things you want to do, whether it's snakes or animals, I know how to act around rattlesnakes because I live near them and I see them a lot, but I think if you're not from a place, whether it's the PCT or anywhere, I just decided I want to learn how to act. So on the PCT, essentially there's 3 things that could harm you or kill you, and that's rattlesnakes, bears, and mountain lions. Mountain lions being the most dangerous. So I know how to act around snakes. Generally, rattlesnakes, what's great is they warn you way ahead of time, and you have to understand that compared to them, we're huge. They do not want to bite us. The only way to get bit is almost to practically step on one, and I've almost stepped on some, and they still don't strike at me. So they want your space. They rattle. Give them the space, and maybe you can throw little sticks or something, get them off the trail sometimes. But I decided before my thru hike to learn how to act towards a mountain lion or a bear. If I see one and it's a worst case scenario, it's important to know what to do. So that's what I did. And so those I've learned what to do. Scorpions, I'm gonna be honest with you, I haven't seen one scorpion in the desert yet. And I know they're out there. If you were to turn rocks over and stuff in the desert, you'd probably see them. When I've seen scorpions, I've never seen one while hiking in the desert. But I've seen videos where people see them all the time, and they're generally at night. They come out a lot, and they glow. So I don't typically night hike very much in the desert. It's when it's really hot, I would do that. But I tend to, because I live by the desert, I just don't go out there. I've been waiting all summer. It's finally cooling down, and it's October 19th today. So so for scorpions, I'm not sure what to say to you about that. In my area, they come out at night. So I hope that kind of all fits under that umbrella of all those pests and animals. Okay, question number 3 may be the most important question I've ever answered on my channel in 5 years, and that is from Wolf Adventures. How many coffee packets do you bring per day? Super important. And the answer is I use the Trader Joe's stuff right now, but I'm actually probably going to switch. I've used Starbucks Via coffee, which is much stronger, but I use, I'll put a picture somewhere here of what I use from Trader Joe's because I joke I like a little bit of coffee in my cream and sugar, and this one comes with sugar and cream in it. And so I generally, if you guys ever watched me like this year in the Sierras and last year, I just cold soaked it in my chest pouch, when I'm walking. And once you start walking, it jiggles up, and I just drink it as I go, and it saves time, not having to cook. It saves fuel too. But I honestly, I don't know if it's almost like the placebo effect, but I don't feel like when I see the packet and I pour it in, it's almost all white. It's almost all creamer and all sugar, almost no dark specks of coffee. So I think that I'm not hardly getting any coffee. So I think I'm going to change that up if I really want, especially, after doing a long 20 or 25 mile day. The next morning when I drink coffee, I want to be boosted by some coffee. So I'm probably going to learn to either do black or maybe bring some powder cream or something just to kind of cut the edge off some of the harshness. But I've had some Via that I've cold soaked, and it's so diluted, it's not bad, black. But I've had some that were so strong and like tart that it didn't taste good. So I've got to find a different coffee, but I've been using this coffee I just showed you for at least 3 years. All right, I'm trying to make a conscious effort to make these videos shorter, and our last question is by Jasmine. She asked, how have you balanced decision making around taking versus leaving luxury items? Some trips I really regret it, like my 1 pound pillow. Other times I wish I could have had my fishing pole. So my experience is different than I think a lot of people. Like, we're talking luxury items going in the Sierras for 2, 3, 7 days. A lot of my trips are like long on the PCT, where I think of it differently. I do bring my Kindle a lot when I do weekend trips, and I'll bring a flask of whiskey and things like that. So I do bring extra things when I know I'm going to be in bed in 2 or 3 days. But I can only speak for thru hiking. I think my one luxury item that I can think of right now off the top of my head is my newish Nemo Philo pillow. My air pillow, and I'll try to show a picture here somewhere. I also use a buff, my neck and warm buff, as a pillowcase, so that when I get into, I don't get my pillow filthy when I'm thru hiking. I take off the buff, wash it with my clothes, put it back on. Makes it a little softer too, and less slippery when it's on top of my air mattress. But I guess the way I can answer this is how to decide. It's what's important to us, right? For me, a pillow, I've had really bad pillows for a long time, just like I struggled with having the right tent. So for me, rest and recovery is really important, especially at 60 years old. So the pillow I found I absolutely love. I like a thinner pillow. I want some comfort in it. I had a fatter pillow before, but I had to let half the air out, and then it was weird. It was like it's wrapped around my head. So now I have a thinner one. I tend to put my arm, I'm a side sleeper, put my arm under my pillow, so I couldn't have my arm under and a fat pillow. So that's why I have the Philo. It's not a cheap pillow, but it's the best pillow I've ever owned so far. And to the end of the question is basically, how do you decide? It's how important is it to you? I think if you've never thru hiked, these are hard decisions. But once you thru hike and you have it on your back every day, and you're doing brutal climbs day after day after day after a week after a month, you find out that, whoa. You find out that, I'm going to try to finish this video before the whole place collapses on me. But you find out that, I think the freeing thing is I found out I don't really need that much stuff, Some people do They have a stuff sack, you know, that you keep like extra stuff in and clothes. You'll just throw our jacket and the sweater in there and use that as a pillow. I've tried it, can't do it. That is a great ultralight minimal way to do it, but I can't do it. I can't sleep on that. So my pillow is my luxury item, but you'll just find over time, you just have to be honest. I think it's kind of like when we travel on an airplane, you throw all this extra stuff I used to in a luggage because it's not on my back. But once it's on your back, it's a whole different story. And I've slowly, every trip, every year, I find I have less and less stuff, or I buy something that replaces that, but it's lighter and more compact. So my loadout is getting smaller and more compact and lighter, so then my pack can get smaller and lighter, and it's just less abuse on my body. I'm enjoying my days more. I mean, I don't know how I did the desert with my first pack. It weighed a ton. It was physically giant. It caught, you know, I'm a tall guy. I was catching, the high part of my pack was catching on trees and stuff and bushes, and so I hope that answers the question, but there's no easy answer to this. It's really we all have different, I guess, priorities, and there's no way to know those priorities till you use all this stuff enough to know. Now, if I was going specifically to Sierras on a fishing trip, I'd bring my fishing pole. I do want to take up fishing. It's one of the things I decided I wanted to do more of. I did it when I was a child a lot, but this year on the PCT, I saw a lot of people fly fishing. I thought, you know what, I want to start fishing again. So that's what I'm going to do. So thank you for the question, Jasmine. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please, more questions. We need some more questions. We have enough for a couple more videos, but I would like some more. And of course, if you'd like to support the channel, make sure the easiest stuff that's free is subscribe and like and hit the notification bell up here if you want to be notified every time I have a video. There's ways, if you'd like to give a small donation or a monthly donation, there's ways down in the description box, so check that out. Besides that, that's all I got. We'll see you at episode 4, and thanks for watching.